Hi, Court.
And hi, B Critics fam. Welcome to another episode of the B Critics podcast.
This episode is part of our Coming to Theaters or Now in Theaters series where we discuss new movies spoiler free.
B Critics, rev your engines because in this episode, we're getting you up to speed on Gran Turismo and what you need to know before heading to theaters. I can't believe you just made me read that.
Yeah, so
We're talking about Gran Turismo.
I write our little opener each time, and I try to throw something in cute from the movie, and Courtney's just not as cheesy as me, which is fine, but it's funny. I think they're fun.
That's okay. We're talking about Gran Turismo. So,
Yeah.
Liz, will you give us the premise of the movie?
Yeah.
Please?
Okay. Jann Mardenborough is a normal kid like everyone else, except he's really good at the racing simulator Gran Turismo. When Nissan decides to host a competition for Gran Turismo gamers to have a chance to race real cars, Jann gets the opportunity of a lifetime. Come along on Jann's journey as he attends the Nissan GT Academy and learns what it means to be a professional race car driver. Does Jann have what it takes, or will he prove all his haters right?
Have you ever played Gran Turismo?
I have not.
No, I cannot say I have either.
But my husband Hayden has, and he really liked it. So
Okay.
yeah. A little about Gran Turismo for all of you that are like, what the heck is this movie? Like, why do I care about Gran Turismo? So it's a long-running video game dating back to 1997, exclusive to the PlayStation console. This game is focused on cars, racing, and customization. The newest version, Gran Turismo 7, came out in 2022. So it's pretty relevant that this movie is coming out too.
So it's a racing simulator.
Yeah.
It's you're meant to feel like you're racing the car.
Yeah.
I have so many questions about it because this movie just made me, I was so confused about if this could be real, and it's based on a real story, and I don't know, it's wild.
Yeah. A lot of engineering went into making this video game simulator. A lot.
Yeah, which they didn't talk about that in the movie. This is Jann's story, and I kind of wish they had. I was so curious about it.
They kind of did at the beginning, just a little bit.
But
a
little bit. A little tiny bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like that could have easily bored people, so that's probably why they didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So this movie was 2 hours and 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it was PG-13, which it definitely needed to be PG-13 because some of the violent crashes in the game would be a bit much for a child, I think.
Yeah. Some of them were pretty scary.
Yeah.
Pretty scary. But I would say my dad probably would have taken my brother to this when he was younger. So
yeah, I would probably take my kids to it too. Maybe not little kids. I don't have kids. I don't know.
There
Maybe
were a couple questionable jokes too.
Yeah, it wasn't that mature though.
No, it wasn't.
So this movie comes out on the 25th of August, full release in the US.
In just a few weeks, literally 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's done a limited release in the theaters here, and me and Liz have both seen it. I went and saw it last night. So we're going to talk about it. It was produced by, spoiler free, it was produced by Sony and PlayStation, clearly. PlayStation was advertised
heavily
everywhere.
Branded.
Yes, this movie was I was watching it and I was like, is this a movie or is this a commercial for PlayStation?
It's a pretty good commercial if it's a commercial.
I mean, and Nissan. He kept saying Nissan. Nissan. And I was like, what in the world is he saying?
Yeah, just this isn't a spoiler, but a lot of the actors in the movie are British, so there's a lot of things that they say that are just very different from the way that we talk in America.
So instead of Nissan, they say Nissan.
Nissan.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, I thought it was cute.
I was obsessed with all the British speaking in the movie.
It
Like
was
right off the
cute.
bat, they were like, "What's up, bruv?" And they were like texting bruv. I was like, "This is like Love Island in this movie. What's going on?"
Is that just the way that they say like bro or like brother or whatever?
Yeah, they say bruv.
Okay.
It's my favorite British word.
Oh,
Um,
love that.
nobody said that they got mugged off though, which
Oh.
was very disappointing. Have you ever watched Love Island?
No.
No, all the characters, they're like, whenever they get dumped, because they get dumped constantly, they're like, "Oh, they mugged me off, man or mate," and like,
Is that Australian or British?
mugged me off. I don't know. I don't have a very good British accent. Just let me be. But like, there's like so much drama about who mugged who off.
Oh no.
I know.
This is giving me the like Ken beach off scene vibes all over again.
Kind of. You need to watch Love Island. But anyway, I appreciated the Britishness of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this movie was directed by Neil Blomkamp.
Blomkamp.
Blomkamp. He's South African Canadian. I've never watched any of his other
Mm-mm.
movies.
I
I don't
haven't
think.
either. A lot of people have been talking about like the very first movie he did, which I don't know the name of it, but people like that one apparently. I haven't seen it. But I don't
No,
know.
I haven't either. But I can tell you what I thought of this movie, that's for sure. And then notable cast. So we have David Arbor, who probably like the best acting in the movie. Orlando Bloom, Archie Madekwe. I think I did that right.
Madekwe, yeah.
Darren Barnett, Jaimon Hansu, who
Mm-hmm.
was Jan's dad.
Mm-hmm. And I want to like throw out an honorable mention because I was shocked when I saw her come on screen because I didn't know she was going to be in this movie. But Jerry Hollowell was in this. And if you don't know who that is Ginger Spice from the Spice Girls. That's the mom.
What? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Oh,
She came on the screen and
cool.
I was like, oh, okay, if you know me, Spice World is in my top 4 movies. So like I was very excited about this woman being in this movie.
That's how I was when Darren Barnett came on the screen, who is Maddie Davis,
He's a
and he's
cutie.
Paxton Hall Yoshida. Come on, people, you know.
Fangirling over here.
You've watched Never Have I Ever?
Yes,
Yeah,
love
okay,
that.
obsessed. That boy, he was like such an ass in this movie. I was like, dude, get a grip.
He redeemed himself.
Okay. Is this supposed to be spoiler free,
It
Elizabeth?
is spoiler free. It's
Everybody,
fine.
I mean, people know the story. Okay, so let's talk about it. The story.
Yeah.
So this is based on a true story.
Yeah. Yeah. If you didn't gather that from like all the marketing, it is based on a true story. I think it's meant to be like inspiring and it's kind of so I mean, it's again based on a true story, but it feels so unreal. Like while you're watching, you're just like, there's no way.
I was thinking that the whole time. I was like,
Yeah.
this seems so unrealistic. And then to find out that it was based on a real story and a
Mhm.
lot of the elements of it that felt very unrealistic were the real
The real
elements.
parts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a lot of it, like I think a lot of the character stuff was obviously very dramatized, but I think
Mhm.
the core elements of the story were very true.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like all of these like biopics, they dramatize it to make everything to make people interested, right? But it was just like so incredible. I was just watching it and I was like, this story is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the characters.
Yeah, the characters.
We've got the guy who played Yan. His
Archie
name,
Madekwe.
yeah. He was fine, in my
I
opinion.
I thought he was so lovable. And I don't know if it's just because like Yan and his story is lovable or because I liked this Archie fellow. Um but I was just like rooting for him the whole time. I thought he was great. He's also in Midsommar.
Yeah, I know. He plays like a small character in that.
Did you
Yeah.
also not enjoy him in that movie?
No, I think he was fine. I didn't like not enjoy him. I think like Okay, here's my take on this.
Okay, give it to
All
us.
yes. All these people we're about to talk about, they're fine. Their acting is fine. I've already said this, but David Arbor like very clearly outacted everybody else.
Yeah, he did. I will give you
In
that.
my opinion, these actors did not have a lot to work with. The script was bad. And so I think like the execution of it could pretty much only be fine at its best. And in Orlando Bloom's case, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Every time he came on the screen, I laughed out loud. Like, I'm not even kidding. I
I
was like,
liked him.
I like he was good. Like he was fine. Like he was
It was
fine. But like
Orlando Bloom. He
his
took his shirt
character though,
off, like, all the things.
but his character was just like so much. Like I don't know. He was just like so extra. Like everything
Yeah.
he did. And I feel like that guy is probably kind of like that in real life. But like the moment when he was like
Mhm.
like just like all the scenes with him like trying to pull all of this together because he was like
Mhm.
approaching Nissan and trying to get them to like do this plan that he had to get
Yeah.
these kids who were playing the game to like become real life racers. And like everything about it was just so dramatized. And I
Yeah.
think like if I could have said like make a Gran Turismo movie script cookie cutter, like this is what you need to do, like that is what they put on the screen. Like there was no like originality in like any of the dialogue or the lines or the interaction. And I think that the actors that we're about to talk about like did fine with that. Like they were good, but I just don't think they had like a lot to work with.
So, I think I'm not discounting what you're saying. I don't think it's, like, the best written script ever, but I think what you mostly don't like about it is that it was kinda cheesy. So, this movie was not really about the dialogue, right? It was, like, about the whole story and also, like, the action sequences, which we're gonna
Mhm.
talk about a little bit. But it's like the point of the movie was not about, like, the dialogue. I think the dialogue was just kinda there as, like, a supporting side, but it
Yeah, but
does
like
kinda start dialogue heavy.
yeah,
I
and
liked it. I really enjoyed it, but I'm also a very cheesy person. We already established that at the beginning of this. So maybe that's why we have differing opinions on it, but I thought it was
yeah,
good.
yeah, we'll talk a little more about it. I just like I okay, and next I'll talk
Back
about
to Orlando Bloom's character because I love Orlando Bloom and so his character, they changed the name of his character
Mhm,
because they did dramatize him. But it's the
mhm,
man's who he's based off of is named Darren Cox, and he is the man who conceived GT Academy. So that is like true. That part is true. The
okay.
rest of it, I think, was like make it whatever you want kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I don't have a ton to say about Ian's dad other than I thought he was well executed. Like the parts he was in were good.
Yeah, I
Um,
thought he was like he played his part well, like the overbearing, like extra dad who was like way too hard on his son. The
mhm.
scene where he was crying was like a bit much for me. Like
Oh,
he was like
Courtney.
aggressively crying. I don't know. I just like had a really hard time taking this movie seriously because I didn't like the dialogue and like the story didn't like it didn't hook me. Like I didn't believe it. So I think I had a
Yeah.
really hard time being like feeling the emotions of it all. Like I
I
did a
was
little bit.
fully bought in, like, from the beginning, like, fully engaged and, like, excited about all the characters and all of that. I thought that scene was very moving, and we don't need to talk about that scene because that's gonna give it away, but, um, let's move on to David Harbour. Let's
Yeah.
talk about Jack Salter, who is the, like, trainer for the GT Academy.
Yeah, he was great.
What I have to say about this character is he felt very familiar. And he's kind of like the typical doubtful coach thing. And
Yeah.
like it just worked. It gave me like from Kicking and Screaming like Mike Ditka
Yeah.
vibes.
again, cookie cutter character vibes.
Yeah.
Like he did it well, but like nothing original about him. In
I
my
mean, I
personal
think that
opinion.
was just kind of like how the story was.
I
Like,
thought
I
he
think they
was
were
funny.
trying to keep it true to the story. But yeah,
Like
he was very funny. The
his
comedy was
parts
there.
were the only parts where like when I was like laughing
Laughing
because
because it
it was
was funny.
humorous. Not because it
Yeah.
was like cringy.
I mean,
Um
we we can just say it now. We had two very different experiences, and we're going to talk
yeah.
about it a little bit more. I really enjoyed this movie, and like I enjoyed like start to finish the movie. Courtney just felt differently about it. So you're going to hear us go back and forth a little bit. It's just going to help you understand like whether or not you think you're going to like this movie. But
I think the people understand that by now.
I just wanted to
I
clarify.
think that's out in the open, like very much so.
Okay.
Okay. So the soundtrack.
Yeah. I
It's
thought it was like high energy and adrenaline inducing like throughout the whole thing.
they actually did use like a lot of the music from the Gran Turismo 7
Mhm.
sound like video game soundtrack. So
Yeah.
if you are somebody who like plays the game and enjoys the soundtrack, you will probably really enjoy the soundtrack of this movie. It goes along with like the vibe of the movie and like the way that they put it together of like traveling from city to city and stuff. Like I thought that was
Mhm.
all like pretty well done. Um
Yeah.
I like just think I don't like the soundtrack of Gran Turismo 7. Like
I
I
think
don't
I think part of it is too this movie was made for gamers.
yeah,
So
well
like
no,
if you're not a gamer, you might just not really be into like
that's
how
not
they do
true. That's not
things.
true because I enjoy the FIFA soundtracks. I think those are banger
That's
soundtracks,
completely different.
but it's just like
That's
a
like a
different
completely
vibe.
different.
Like a completely
Yes.
different vibe. So like if you are somebody who likes racing games, like this soundtrack fits the vibe for sure.
I think it's more than just racing games. I think FIFA is different from most video games. I think if you are a video game person, like I play a lot of video games,
Mhm.
and the person that I went to see the movie with, Robbie, he also plays a lot of video games and he enjoyed the soundtrack. So I think it's like just
There were
dependent.
there were definitely some songs that I really enjoyed on here that I was like, okay, I'm like getting into this. Um and Yan's obsession with like Kenny G was really fun.
Mhm.
But like in general, like it was interesting. Like I noticed it a lot throughout the film.
Yeah.
So it stood out. And then we have to talk about obviously like the cinematography and the stunts in this movie. So
Mhm.
um the real Yan was actually Archie's stunt double,
Yeah.
which
So
is
cool.
so cool. They look
That was
like
such a
very
neat thing to
similar.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And like such a cool way to like involve the person who the movie's about, and he's getting to like do all not that he wouldn't get to do this anyways, but I think he probably has like a bigger sense of pride in it. Like he's getting to go
Mhm.
on the tours and do all of the promotions and all of that, which is probably like so cool for him, especially being this like gamer person. Like he's probably eating this up, the whole thing.
Yeah, and I did really enjoy like the second half of the movie once we got to the tour and the actual like races. Like
Mhm.
it got infinitely more interesting
Yeah.
because the way that they did the CGI with the cars and like the shots they did of the cars were really
Mhm.
good. Um
I mostly really enjoyed the practical stunts. So like anytime you
okay.
saw like the races going on, like those were actually happening.
Yeah.
And like it all just looked so real and felt so real because it was real. Like they
Yeah, it did
knew
feel
when to use the CGI and when to do the practical stunts, which is just like a lot of movies I think go too far. We've talked about this before if you listen to our show on how we think they go too far with CGI sometimes, and they
mhm.
didn't with this one. Like they used it when they needed to, but other than that, like it was all practical. It was very
Well, I thought
cool.
the CGI was cool because like they did the real race and then the CGI was used to show the game elements.
Yeah.
And
It would go
that
like back and forth, which was
I think
cool.
that was like a really nice blend. I did enjoy that. That was cool. So I think if you played Gran Turismo, like that whole part of it's going to be really really cool. You're gonna
Yeah,
like it.
and I will say too, we talked at the beginning about how this felt like a big advertisement for PlayStation, but I'm glad that they brought PlayStation in,
Mhm.
and also the guy who designed Gran Turismo, I'm gonna butcher his name, so I'm not even gonna say it, but I'm glad that they brought those 2 on board because it just you could tell that it was very cohesive. They weren't just, like, making stuff up, they were using real elements from the game
Yeah.
straight from the game designer, which is very neat, very smart.
Yes, I agree. Okay. And then last, we already talked about it a little bit, but the
Yeah, we don't need to go
storytelling.
on anymore about the storytelling. I think they get it.
Yeah, okay. Um, one of the guys who wrote this movie actually also wrote American Sniper, which I
Oh,
just find it
interesting.
hard to believe that the same guy did that to me, but okay. Um, so how does this movie like compare to other movies we've seen? Um,
I have only seen 2 other racing movies
okay.
that I can, like, think of. One is Talladega Nights, and the other is, like, Herbie Fully Loaded.
Literally don't even count those. Like they're not like
Neither of
racing
which are
movies.
anything like this. I think it was very refreshing to see racing portrayed in a serious light versus, like, the silly boys who, like, are I don't even know. Like, Talladega Nights, that's a silly movie, but I feel like that's usually how racing is portrayed in movies. It's, like, silly people and the silly guys that are racing, but it was nice to see it not portrayed that way. It
I
was, like,
think that's a
very
women's perspective.
serious.
I think if you think about like the Fast and Furious movies, like
I
those
haven't
are
seen any
very
of
much like
those.
serious racing movies. Okay, Liz, is there anything like specific in this movie that stood out to you?
Yeah. So, number 1, there were definitely moments that I kind of felt a little motion sickness,
Really?
which yes. And I'm not like a motion sickness person, but there were definitely moments where I was kind of like, "Oh my gosh." And I saw it in IMAX, so maybe that's part of it. I haven't seen an IMAX movie in a long time.
Okay.
Um, but I just felt like there was a lot of moving going
Yeah.
on. So
That's
maybe if
so
you
interesting.
have motion sickness, just like keep that in mind. Um,
Weird. I didn't feel that
yeah.
at all. Which I'm surprised because I was like pretty close up in the theater. So I feel like if any opportunity was for me to feel motion sickness, this would have been it. But no.
Yeah.
And I do
And
get
even
motion sickness. I get like car sick like very easily.
yeah, I don't know.
Huh.
It was probably just the IMAX experience. I haven't been to an IMAX movie probably since like 6th grade.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
but other than that, I know you said that you thought the acting was fine. I thought it was really good. I thought they
Okay.
did like a great job like portraying the characters. I don't know. I said this already. I was bought in like 100%, but I'm also like into the storylines.
I'm like shook by how much you like this movie, honestly. Like seriously shook because I was like laughing the whole movie. Like I don't know. Like I just can't even believe it. But I to each their own. There people will like this movie. I do
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah.
Um okay. What was your favorite part of the movie?
I loved how not only like was I rooting for Yan the whole time, but like the theater was rooting for Yan the whole time.
Yes,
So,
mine was too.
yeah, people were like clapping and cheering, and like during the sad moments you could hear the audible like, "Oh." And like, like people were just into it. And I thought that was very fun. Like it added to the
Mhm.
experience.
There were these 2
Um
guys that were, like, sitting kind of near me, and
mhm.
I could hear them, like, when stuff would come up from the that was very clearly, like, f straight from the Gran
The
Turismo
game.
game or, like, something canon within the, like, what's gone on with Gran Turismo, like, you could hear them, like, whispering to each other about it, like, "Oh my god." Like, I was like, "Oh, wow,
I
okay.
love that.
People are vibing with this." Yeah. I liked the tracks. Like I liked how you could go see all the like they went through all the tracks and the courses.
Yeah, that was really
Um
cool.
it legitimately made me want to start watching racing. And I have a lot of friends that are into Formula 1 and so it made me want to watch Formula 1 more.
Mhm.
Um and I live in Charlotte, which is like a NASCAR city. So like I was like, okay, I have this opportunity like I could actually like I'm like seriously, like the racing part was really cool. Like I was like, okay, I could watch
Mhm.
Formula One or racing or yeah.
Yeah. I will say actually going to Formula One races is very expensive.
Oh, I'm sure.
So it could turn into a super expensive hobby, which I'm sure
Well,
that has something to do with it. They're like trying to get people back into racing.
yeah. I mean, I could I feel like I know people. Like I could get tickets. I could make it happen.
I think I
Maybe.
could figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, my theater was the same. Everyone was super into it and that was fun.
Mhm.
So if I think we've already said this, but you will like this movie if, in my opinion, if you played Gran Turismo. Like if you are
I
somebody
would
who played
almost
Gran
I
Turismo,
would
like you will
almost
like this
say, like,
movie.
if you have any interest in cars, racing, or, like, video games in general, you'll probably like this. It's very, like, over the top, very much feels like a video game, but it's not a video game. Um, but I'll also say, if you are a soft-hearted human being that loves an underdog story, you're gonna like this too.
Yeah, that's true. Yan is an
So,
underdog.
don't forget there is some cheese in there too. It's pretty cheesy.
It's very cheesy.
I know myself. I know I like these kind of movies.
Okay, Liz, what did you rate this movie?
I gave this movie 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed myself. I was smiling throughout the whole movie. Like I said, rooting for Yan the whole time. I don't know. It made me feel really good, and also like dreams do come true. That's literally the cheesiest thing I've ever said, but like here we are trying to live our dreams, and like if it happened for Yan, it could happen for us.
I do agree. I was in an exceptional mood after the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
It's just
like
like happy.
also
That's all.
smiling, like felt really good. I mean, they
Mhm.
like I think because the races are so intense, like they like pop the champagne after like a race and
Mhm.
I think just in general with racing, I think everybody's in a good mood at the end. Um
Yeah. High
and
energy, all
I
the things.
do think you felt that.
Mhm.
I rated this movie 2 out of 5 stars.
So a
Um,
little less than halfway.
yeah, because the the action shots were cool and they looked
Mhm.
really realistic. Like I will give it that. Um, I guess my take is this is a really good story that was really poorly written. Like they could have done, in my opinion, they could have done so much more with the script.
Yeah.
Because they had such good actors that they had so much potential to be good, and it just wasn't. And it really felt to me like it was just like an advertisement for Nissan, Gran Turismo, and PlayStation. Like I didn't feel like it. Like I feel like there was just so much product placement in this movie that I was like overwhelmed by it.
Have you ever watched NASCAR, like a NASCAR race?
Yeah, I've watched that in like Formula One before.
NASCAR is 100% about product placement. Everything
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. It
I
felt. I
think
mean, it
they
felt
stayed
like it.
very true to like NASCAR and racing, and yeah. But
The other thing I will say is
also
like cars, like this is not my thing. So
yeah.
I know I'm like trashing this movie. Like if you like this, like you probably will like it. I will stand by that the writing was bad. Like it was horrible. So I will not like even if you like love Gran Turismo as a game, like I will not tell you that this was like the best written movie I've ever seen because it just wasn't. Um but I will say that my rating does have an asterisk by it that I'm not into cars.
Okay.
Okay.
I was gonna say that these types of movies are not like made for everyone. Like
Yeah.
they make these movies knowing that there's a certain audience that's gonna enjoy it, and there's a certain audience that really isn't. So, if you don't like it, that's completely fine. You're not gonna like everything. Movies are works of art, and they're meant to make people feel. And feeling meh is still a feeling. So,
I mean, I felt good afterwards. I'll give it.
but you
Yeah.
felt meh about the movie.
Yeah.
The movie was meh.
Yeah. The movie
I
was meh.
loved it.
You said the movie was meh. I heard you.
Oh my God. I said you felt meh about it. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's all we have to say. But before we sign off, we want to extend a huge thank you to our friend Luis and Allied Global Marketing for giving us the opportunity to see Gran Turismo during its advanced screening.
Yeah, huge thank you. Couldn't thank you enough. I did enjoy going and had a great time. So I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you so
Yep.
much for tuning in to our Gran Turismo spoiler-free review episode. Be sure to leave us a rating or a review, drop a comment on the YouTube, and leave us an answer to our poll and Q&A section on Spotify.
You can find more information about the podcast and our entire podography on our website, bcritics.com, or you can find links to all the things on our Linktree and the episode show notes below.
Yeah. And if you are liking what you're listening to, please tell your friends. Tell your friends, share it with a friend. That is like the biggest compliment that you can give us.
And leave us a rating or review and subscribe and follow.
Yeah, so be sure to subscribe, follow so you don't miss anything. And you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.